Hi, sweet friends. Boy, are you in for a treat today. You are going to meet one of my favorite humans, avid Ziva meditator, one of the original people in Moving into Mastery. So if you do Moving into Mastery, you're going to see Robert all over Moving into Mastery. He is also a positive psychologist, and he just wrote a book called But I'm Not a Teacher. And it is like a love letter to all of the amazing parents who are spending their blood, sweat, tears, homeschooling kids in this intense time. And so, Robert, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for writing this book. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to talk about this and try to get it in the hands of as many parents as possible.
Yeah. So before we dive into the book, which I'm so excited about, can you just give us like a snapshot into like your career? What inspired you to become a psychologist? What inspired you to go to positive psychology? We'll start there, and then we'll say like, what is positive psychology?
Sure. Well, I was inspired to get into positive psychology. I was looking for it all along. I've been a psychologist for 20 years, but I found it later in my process. So I'm classically trained or clinically trained, but then I've really retooled as a positive psychologist. What is positive psychology? Positive psychology is this study of happiness, and it's a body of research that looks at character strengths, which I relabel superpowers. Superpowers like hope and bravery and courage and humor and curiosity and all things I talk about in this book.
Okay, so that's so in line, too, with Ziva Kids, because like the Ziva Kids training is like teaching kids that you use meditation to unlock your superpowers, and the ones we play with are bravery, creativity, and kindness. And I love that, like, of course, positive psychology is moving people towards these things that they want to cultivate and not away from trauma, anxiety, all the other things. Just before this interview, you and I were speaking, and I think it's fun to share with folks, is that it's like, yes, there is real intensity in the world, and us spinning out and being anxious and raging and sad about it, it's like it's not necessarily helping, right? It's like, and I don't want to sound like I'm not giving people permission to feel their feelings, and maybe you can speak to that. Like, how do you keep moving towards the positive, keep cultivating these beautiful qualities, and not like spiritually bypass or not feel guilty when the intense feelings come up?
Yeah, it's a choice. I mean, I think it's not, like you said, it's not papering over or eliminating one of the things about positive psychology that I think people misunderstand a lot of the times is it's not getting rid of that negative voice in your head. That's going to be in there. How do you raise your positivity level? And the same thing that working with you has helped me do is how do you spend your energy in creative directions as opposed to sort of feeding the wolf that feeds into that impending gloom and that worry. The worry and everything will be there, but as you said recently too, and this is something I talk about all the time, it's you also have a choice. You have a choice of where you're going to spend your energy.
And so let's say you're in that, or you got into a doom scrolling on Instagram. You're like, oh God, California's on fire. There's an election happening. There's voter suppression happening. There's a whole social unrest. We've got systemic racism. And oh yeah, there's a pandemic and I haven't seen my family in 6 months. Oh right, and I have to work and homeschool my kid. So we're in that headspace. How do you choose hope? How do you choose humor when you're in that cocktail of, high demand?
Well, again, I think you need to, as you said, you need to give yourself space to have all the feelings about the reality of the world. If you're working hard to like force them into a box, or as you said, what you resist persists. If you're trying to block them out, they're only going to fight you. It's a matter of intentionally choosing to be in the room with both of them and intentionally choosing to do something, take some action, do something productive, do something creative, do something fun. Take some action that moves things forward in the world.
Yes. And then it becomes like you take action, you feel better, you want to take more action. It becomes an upward spiral. So tell us about the book, But I'm Not a Teacher. What inspired you to write it?
So, But I'm Not a Teacher kind of wrote through me in a sort of Elizabeth Gilbert kind of way. It kind of downloaded. I was writing a lot about parenting because the pandemic in that direction, the necessity is so great.
Will you just repeat that one more time? Because it froze a little bit. So you say it came through you, and then
it came through me. I've been writing a lot about parenting topics in the last few months because the need has been so great. Parents have really been struggling. And with back to school coming up, what I started to write started to turn into education. I've worked in schools for over 20 years as well. So I have, besides raising our own kids, and the last one's almost done, the end of formal schooling, graduates college in next spring. We've been through 37 years of preschool to college, and we thought we'd seen it all, as I said in the book, and I really believe, but the pandemic's kind of proving us wrong. So what I started to write started to become sort of a series of essays about learning under lockdown, and then it started to come together. And as happens sometimes when you're in a creative flow, there are various pieces that start to gel and form, more than just a set of songs. They actually become an album. And so the book started to come together, and then I ran it by a couple people, and they gave me beautiful feedback, and I started to realize that what parents are really looking for right now is someone to hold their hand with them, someone to walk into the breach, someone to inspire them and to remind them that they have all this potential to handle this situation. But they may need someone to outside of it to say, this isn't just a challenge, this is actually an opportunity. And so that's what I tried to do with the book, is to really inspire parents to take this opportunity. Their kids are going to laugh about this years from now, but the stress that they're feeling right now, they can play a number of different characters in that drama. And I'm suggesting they play the hero, because I think there's a really important role for them to play here in virtual learning.
That the parents play the role of the hero instead of the victim. And so can you give us like a snippet, like one thing, a little sneak peek of what you share in the book of, let's say I'm feeling tired, I'm trying to Zoom, my kid's at school, he's trying to Zoom, he's schooling from home, doesn't want to do it, just wants to play outside, is mad that he can't see his friends, and I'm like trying to do my job so that I don't get fired and can feed my kid. And so but I'm feeling super victim-y, right? How do I switch into hero mentality? What's one thing we can do?
It's the perfect storm. It is really, I wrote this morning, it's almost an impossible equation to solve, but the one thing that we can do, I'm a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz, and that moment where Glinda comes down in her bubble and steps out of this shimmering light, and Dorothy just landed her house on her sister. There's every reason for a parent in that situation to not be Glinda, but to turn and yell at Dorothy and say, whatever reaction comes to mind. But one of the first chapters, I say, be the good witch. And here's the challenge of how do we breathe through that moment, to feel our feet in our shoes, to lower our shoulders from our ears, and to stand tall and see the potential and see the beauty and the possibility in the child standing in front of us, not just how they are pulling us away from that very momentary crisis that we have. This is a much longer timeline, and I'm trying to inspire parents to look at it that way.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful change. I remember reading that in the book where you're like, even the tone of your voice, can you be Glinda the Good Witch in the tone of your voice? Even if you're feeling stressed, I don't know if you're suggesting like fake it till you make it, but instead of screaming, can you stop, take a breath, rely on your meditation practice and speak to your child with kindness and see their potential. And this is fascinating to me, this idea that this pandemic is, it is going to end. None of us know when or how, but it is a chapter, right? We're in the COVID season right now, but our relationship with our children, the impact of this stress, the impact of this time, this has the potential to last on for decades, even generations. And so it's like, it's never about the thing. It's always about how we respond to the thing. And so this idea that you're helping parents to pull the lens back and to favor the relationship versus this specific instance, I think is so valuable.
It's the thing to do. It is, if there's one takeaway from the book, that is it. How do we see the longer timeline and not get swept up in the wave, but be part of the ocean?
Yeah, that's right. Is there anything else from the book that you're just like, oh, this concept, like I definitely want people to know and understand this, or this is worth the book right here. This is worth reading the book right here. That would just really entice people, because I really want everyone to get this book, or every parent to get this book. And if you don't have kids, you could gift it. So is there anything else you want to share?
Sure. There are a number of concepts in there, but I think the most valuable thing for parents who are wondering if it's going to be useful for them is I really lay out the 5 biggest obstacles to learning under lockdown. And I talk about sleep, and I talk about distraction and focus, 2 separate things. I talk about schools wanting to treat your kids like a robot. So I have specific tips on each of those things and ways that you can start to modify each of those obstacles so that they can work for you and you can turn this challenge into an opportunity.
What a beautiful reframe. Because it's a huge challenge, and we get to choose whether or not we play the victim or the hero. But every good hero needs tools, needs sidekicks, needs a mentor, needs people who've been in this game for 37 years. And so thank you for stepping up. Thank you for sharing your lifetime of experience, both as a parent and as a positive psychologist, so that we can benefit and learn from it. And as a meditator, right? Like, you're like OG A plus.
No, it's no small part. And there's stuff that I learned in moving into mastery that's all through here. Talk about time and the time span, and the pandemic's just warping time. I mean, crazy.
Yeah, things are speeding up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so tell us, so the book is called But I'm Not a Teacher. Where can people find it?
But I'm Not a Teacher, A Parent's Guide to Learning Under Lockdown. It's available on Amazon on your Kindle. Okay. And it's not a long read. I really kept it short, kept a couple stories in there, but mostly got to 24 detailed tips that you can use to make this opportunity valuable for your kids and make the most of this time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sending me a copy. I'm so excited. I mean, I'm thanking my lucky stars every day that my son is not yet in school age, that he's just a toddler. But even still, like, even reading it at a toddler age, it was like, oh, my stress matters. The way I interact with him right now matters. Like, his lack of socialization right now matters. And so, how do I get creative? Like, my coach says to me, she's like, you're not mad at the pandemic. You're mad at your own creativity. And I was like, oh, like, that one hurt a little bit.
Wow.
But it's like a good reminder that, like, this is an opportunity for creativity. And what resources do we have available to us? What are our unique resources? Do I have a neighbor? Do I have, is there anything in my neighborhood? Is there, like, what can I use as a tool to help me on this journey? What can I use to support my kid? And I think that this book is going to be a great one. So, But I'm Not a Teacher, available on Amazon, Kindle. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for being such a beautiful member of the Ziva community. Thank you for applying the stuff that you've learned and moving into mastery and sharing it with the world. That's what I created it for. And I just love you so much.
Thanks, Emily. This was awesome.
Yeah. All right. So check it out, you guys, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.